Well, welcome everyone. This is Brad Stein, God's Comic, and this is Brad Stein Has Issues Where Comedy, Conservatism, and Christianity collide. In a cacophony of clarity, I am your host. My sidekick is my son, Wyatt Leroy Stein. He pops in every now and again with a clever quip. And of course, tonight's guest, special guest, a guest you're going to love because you've heard of him, you've listened to him, you've been impressed by him. He's an actor, he's an activist. His name, Kevin Sorbo. That's right. Wyatt, I thought they'd get some applause for that. Kevin Sorbo. No? Yeah. They shouldn't be laughing and mocking at Kevin Sorbo.
Sorry, the laughter button and the applause button are yellow and orange. So
Okay.
I just panicked and pressed the wrong one.
So yellow is the first composite of orange, yellow and red, whereas orange is unexistent unless there is yellow and red, which are two what they call primary colors, or in mathematical terms, primary numbers. Yes, Wyatt?
I have no idea what you mean by primary numbers, but...
Well, what is a primary number?
Nothing. That's not a thing.
Oh.
Prime number.
Prime.
And that's not similar to a primary.
What does prime mean?
So a prime number is a number that is only divisible by 1 in itself.
Okay, so there you have it. That's what I meant. If you think about orange, it's only orangey by dividing red and yellow. That's all.
Yeah,
that I was
but
getting
you
at. So I
also-
knew it exactly what I was talking about.
But you were also wrong about red and yellow being primary colors.
They're not?
Technically,
Yellow is.
they are, I believe, additive primary colors.
Okay, what's the primary?
Well, additive means that you add the color together to make something else.
Yeah.
The three additive primary colors, I think, are red, yellow, and blue.
Yes.
But the three subtractive primary colors, I took an art class, I know this,
Okay.
are magenta, cyan, and green.
Okay. So,
But green's a secondary color additively because it's yellow and blue.
that's right.
But it's also a primary color. Art is weird.
I think that...
Art is weird.
Well, you know what's weird about art, Wyatt? And let me tell you about art. I'm going to talk to you about it. And for those of you just tuning in, I'm glad to have you. Thank you for showing up. We have an amazing guest, Kevin Sorbo. But what happens is in the beginning is I sit and talk to my son, and we try to figure out some of the things in life, the spiritual dimension we might talk about. We might talk about what's happening in America right now. We probably will. And we want to just be topical. We want to be fun. We want you to feel like family. Wyatt, I want to feel like family. I want the people watching right now to feel like my family because A, I want to have more people I can borrow money from, and B, I want somebody that will make me a sandwich. And all of my family members have done both for me in my lifetime, so I figured why not have a whole bunch of them and have access to unlimited sandwiches. So this is the beauty of having a podcast. And you didn't think this through when I started this podcast. You said, Dad, you're wasting your time. Everybody does a podcast. You know, what's the upside? And I alluded to it. I had a cursory kind of terms and ideas, but I kept them kind of foggy, kind of misty. But what was it? What's the big ending to this whole thing? The thing that can make you feel like you've gotten there? Sandwiches.
Yeah, I think what you said to me is, look, I know that it seems like a push, like we're going out of our element, but I promise you, when this takes off, we will have our own submarine. Unfortunately, I didn't catch the sandwich part after that.
Yeah,
but,
I neglected to add that. I think I was tired at that time.
I'm beginning to think that you were kind of misleading with that, honestly.
Right, maybe.
Yeah.
But
sort of the boy who cried sandwich.
yes,
sorta
and
instance.
I've had sandwiches that I've cried over. I will
Yes.
tell you that right here and now.
And there have been sandwiches I've looked at and just cried.
Folks, you got to understand something about my son Wyatt. And Wyatt did exude from my loins, so I created him from whole cloth. He didn't exist, then he did, thanks to me. And so because of that, I have special insights about that guy. I have ways of looking at him, thinking about him, talking about him, and trying to discover where his life is going to go. And one of the things about my son that I love, and it's very frustrating, very annoying, he's incredibly idiosyncratic. Now, I don't know if you all out there have family friends like this. Have you ever seen the classic film When Harry Met Sally? How about you, Wyatt? Do you ever see that movie?
No, I've never
Ever
seen
heard of it?
No.
Yeah, okay. Phew.
I'm not a movie buff.
No,
as
you're
you
not.
know.
You're not much of a buff at all. And virtually a lot of what would be interesting to our viewers. But I did notice that it's a very famous, it's one of my top 10 favorite movies. It was wonderfully done, beautifully done, wonderful chemistry. They nailed it. They killed it. But it kind of talked about this idea that we are idiosyncratic. Some people have very unique character traits. And this Sally girl, one of the things he loved about her is like she would order lunch and say, "I'd like a salad, but I want to have the dressing on the side, and I want it 3 croutons, but only on one there and one there, but you can't have any on the side. And then I need 2 forks, but one needs to be." It was just really like specific what she wanted, and it was funny because it was so weird. Like I said, idiosyncratic, and yet at the end he's like, "That's what I love about you. It's just so." You couldn't have invented that. And you're like that with food. Wyatt, maybe you should tell the folks your weirdness. Now, we do know that you had a speech delay when you were a young little lad. And so they said that part of a speech delay is textures. So that's why to this day, and it pains me to say it, you don't like mashed potatoes and gravy. And I love mashed potatoes and gravy. So you don't like them because I guess they feel mushy in your mouth. My first band was called Mushy in Your Mouth. I don't know if you know that, but
I thought it was Brad and the Mash.
That was when that was a working title.
That was when you were indie, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you went mainstream.
Yes, but anyways, he doesn't like mashed potatoes, folks. He doesn't like, let's see, he'll eat his salad last, which is completely ridiculous.
And in college, my salads were a bowl of spinach with no other things, no seasonings, no dressing, just spinach in a bowl.
You understand that a salad that consists of a bowl of spinach could also be called
a bowl of spinach.
A bowl of spinach.
But that doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well.
It doesn't. And it doesn't sound as like logical, normal. Like people could understand, oh, I had a salad. Well, good for you. You're a healthy guy. But just say, I got a bowl full of spinach.
That makes you that guy.
Yeah,
you know, the person they talk about in the office behind closed doors.
That's it. At the water cooler, if they even still have those.
I do think, honestly, I'm supposed they don't just Bluetooth the water into your cup at this point.
Maybe they can.
I'm sure technology's advanced far enough for that.
Well, you know what a bowl full of water is also called?
Soup.
Yeah. So same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
A bowl full of water is soup. A bowl full of
I mean, I will tell you that would be
spinach.
the world's most boring soup, but just throw some ice cubes in there for texture, you'll be fine.
I think I could give you a run for your money and giving you the world's most boring salad, Wyatt, actually.
What would that be?
A bowl of spinach.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something clever, but instead you just repeated my talking point.
Well, your talking point is so odd. Nothing wrong with odd, by the way. I like odd.
One of my first baths was in a bowl of beans, okay? Which,
That's right.
Which ironically was also for the speech thing. How do those things coordinate?
Well, they're hoping to get you to eat beans, and especially refried beans, which, by the way, you love. Folks, let me tell you something else about Wyatt. And comment below if you have your own eating idiosyncrasies, or if you know somebody that's not online watching us right now so you can completely mock and ridicule them.
Like, I'm just saying, like, are you sure the person you brought me to was an actual doctor?
I don't know that.
Because I'm pretty sure anyone who says, yes, this man has not spoken correctly in 2 months earlier than he should have. Get the beans.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you got to stay far away from that guy.
They said it like this.
Just saying.
To the beans! That's how he said it.
Throw him to the beans!
Well, the reason, it was hard beans. They weren't cooked. And you were in this bowl of beans.
Oh, don't say that. Now people's mental image is going to be somewhat sensible.
Well, yeah. So it wasn't cooked beans, guys. It was just a bunch of beans.
So speaking of beans, I hate mashed potatoes. But refried beans? Give me them.
He loves the. Okay, so here's what I was going to get at, you guys, and I want you to listen to this, and I want you to comment. I mean, with all, just everything you got.
With all due respect, however little that may be,
I want you to comment about if this makes sense to you. So Wyatt doesn't like mashed potatoes because the kind of creamy but kind of gritty, I guess.
it's not creamy. It's literally potato soup at that point.
No, because there is
It's a
potatoes.
liquid. It is literally a melt in your mouth liquid.
Okay, well, anyways, here's the deal. Refried beans are literally the exact same texture as mashed potatoes.
I don't know why.
And he loves it. But here's the part I want to tell you guys about, just to shock you. We're talking about idiosyncrasies right now. He loves He loves bean burritos. My son could survive the rest of his life on bean burritos every day or cheese pizza.
I
That's it.
have for extended periods.
I know. It's absurd. He used to go to school, and they had a Taco Bell in his school, and he'd walk up there, and they would just go make him 5 bean burritos because it's that guy.
I
And
have so many stories about this. It's not even
Go ahead.
funny. So the Taco Bell was sort of in like the middle of one of the floors of this like rec building. I usually go through the main entrance to get there. And I wait in line, get my food, pay, and leave. But one day, I decided I'm closer to the back entrance, so I'll just go there. So I walked through the door. And remind you, the Taco Bell is like a good minute walk from there. Like, they can see me, but it's going to take a while.
yeah.
By the time I got up to order, they handed me the bag and said, here's how much it costs. I can't say I was proud of myself at that moment. Actually, that was one of the things that made me go, okay, maybe I go here a little bit too much. And then there was another time. I was waiting in line, and it was a big line. And there was one person in front of me. And he was a little bit indecisive for what he wanted. In fact, he was so indecisive that the cashier looked at me and said, hey, you, just pay. We'll get you. This guy's taking too long.
So they went around. You cut in line and stayed where you were because they said, "Oh, there's the 5 burrito guy."
Oh, there was Mr. Five Bean.
Okay. Well, here's the deal, guys. I want you to hear me, and I want you. Please comment. We need some interaction. I need you to like, share. By the way, as we try to grow our little YouTube, we're trying to get 100,000. We're only at 37,000. Come on!
What?
That sucks.
Do I have to make 63,000 alt accounts just to reach this goal?
You
'Cause I
might.
will.
Well,
It'll take me weeks, but I can do that.
if that's what it takes. But here's the deal I want to get at, and I still haven't got at it. It's driving me crazy.
Well, get to your point faster then.
So you give him a bean burrito. And by the way, he's very specific. He doesn't want too many beans in his bean. Loves beans, can't do without the beans, has to have beans, but not too many beans.
Look, honestly, one of the best bean burritos I ever had, we went to a Taco Bell in, I think, Johnson City or something like that. It was for one of your shows.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this, but we got the burritos, and the bag seemed a bit light.
Okay.
We took them out. I swear to you, these burritos looked like they were run over by a steamroller.
Okay. There
It was like this much tortilla,
Yeah.
this much bean and cheese.
Okay. So it was
Best
just.
burrito I ever had.
Really?
It got the ratio of filling to crust perfect.
Okay. So that's cool that you have that discerning palate. But eating the burrito, eating it, loving it, doesn't do any hot sauce. He thinks
Nope.
ketchup is spicy. This
It
guy
is.
is just something is.
It has spices in it and is therefore, by dictionary definition, spicy.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't even know what a spice is. I suppose.
A spice is anything. Honestly, I think a spice is really anything you want it to be. It's any food that you eat only with
But
other
we
foods.
think of spicy as being tingly, hot, right?
But cumin is technically not a spicy, but it still makes you tingle.
Okay, well, cinnamon is spicy and it's not hot. So my point is
exactly,
this: it's
exactly.
not spicy. He thinks. I'm not kidding you. He thinks ketchup is spicy.
Because it is.
All right, so he'll eat his burrito all day long. He'll eat it to oblivion, unless some of the beans spill out onto his plate. You would think it's got all this beautiful melted cheese and other. All you have to do is take a spoon or fork and scoop it up and just eat those refried brains. He can't do it. If he has a chip, he can scoop it with the chip and he'll eat it. But if it's just a nice, beautiful, creamy, hot, steamy, cheese-infused pile of refried beans, and he has no chip and no tortilla left, he won't eat it. Now,
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, guys. Something is desperately wrong.
No,
with
it's similar
that.
to one of the jokes you made on your latest album, I think,
Mm.
Laugh While It's Legal.
What?
It's like hail. You can love it, you
Oh.
can brush it, it's fine. The moment it's off the body, it's suddenly a problem.
Yes,
It's the same
unattached.
thing. The moment the beans are removed from the food, it is disgusting.
Okay.
Because it's no longer serving its intended
I
purpose.
guess. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Beans and chips is nachos, basically. That is
Yeah.
a purpose.
True. True.
Beans in a tortilla is a burrito. It is serving its purpose.
True.
Beans on themselves is like an apple pie. Hold the pie.
Listen.
It's just apples at that point. Nobody wants to eat that.
Okay, well, listen, you know at the same Taco Bell that you enjoy, they have refried beans. It's a cup of beans. It's literally a side order, and that's all it is. No, it's nothing but
And the people who order it, I have serious concerns for.
I love the beans.
Case in point.
Right. And I love putting a hot sauce, and he doesn't use any hot sauce. And I feel like, so let's think about this for a second, guys. We've had a incredibly thorough conversation about texture, mashed potatoes versus refried beans, in the burrito, out of the burrito, eating it with the scoop, not eating it without the scoop. So it's been fairly, it could be, maybe many of you have walked away at this point, but for those of you who are watching, there is some method to my madness. Idiosyncrasy, the way that human beings are different, unique, and have their own subjectivity as to how they're going to live their life and what works for them. And, you know, you can't really say it's wrong. It's like me saying, you mentioned apple pie. If I said I'm not a big fan of apple pie, doesn't make it wrong because it's not a moral issue. It's simply a taste issue. I don't really, not crazy about the taste. So what does it mean, right, to have your own kind of idiosyncrasies, and why do we as humans tend to judge others as though something's wrong with them for having a different opinion or a different flavor or a different desire or love or whatever? Why do we immediately define their perspective from a moral or an ethical or a philosophical or an ideological standpoint based on an objective reality or based on our own subjective reality that we decide is the standard for where all thoughts and ideas should stem from? And, you know, as simple as it is, and I was making a joke with my son because I always just found it so odd that, you know, he loves the beans until they plop out onto his plate because I love those. I'd eat them right up. And but you wrestle, guys. You wrestle with people not seeing it the way you do. Now, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I don't know if you know this or not. He's God. The only human in history that actually died, came back to life, and people saw it. And they died for that idea because they saw something that couldn't happen. And it was from a guy who claimed to be God, that this is a sacrifice for you. Now, guys, I don't know how long, if you're watching, you're an atheist, an agnostic, a non-believer, a different religious belief system. I don't know how you are going to deal with this evidence of those who actually saw and recorded what they saw. Now, I understand you don't have to believe them. They just lied. They made up this idea that Jesus died and rose back from the dead. Of course, that's what you could say, because we have myths on earth of people that wrote about the dying God over here and the risen God over here and the sun God over there and Thor over there and Zeus over here. So of course there's mythological things. And yeah, they don't believe they're actually God. But you know what? They have echoes, they have shadows, they have almost presciently explore what could come that would be actually God if it was dimensionalized. It's like what Tolkien told to C.S. Lewis that literally helped bring him to Christ, because C.S. Lewis was an expert in medieval history and their stories, right? That's what he taught in like Oxford. So this dude was a genius. And Tolkien, who of course wrote the Lord of the Rings, said the difference is that Christianity, Jesus, is the true myth. This one happened, and we have real. There's no grave for Zeus because we know he's a myth. Now, the people that believed in him maybe really believed in him, but there's no grave for him. Because he never existed. There's no places that are mentioned where he walked that because there's this road or that. But the New Testament is filled with people who actually did actual things in actual places, and they're historically verifiable. They're actually there. Jesus went to Golgotha. Jesus went to Capernaum. Jesus was born in Nazareth, right, or born in Bethlehem, but raised in Nazareth. So this is all historical accuracy of actual places that actually existed with actual people that we actually can confirm. So it makes it no longer a myth. It makes it a real access and a reference point to a real time and place with a real person that people admit, including Bart Ehrman, whose entire life, once he walked away from Christianity, was to make sure that people followed him into hell. And that's what it is. It's heresy. And it's interesting to me I see this a lot in what they call the deconstruction movement of Christianity. These are people that have decided that God doesn't fit the moral realm that they demand. It's usually sexual. They want him to allow them to have any type of sex with any type of thing. And that should be beautiful to God. And he finds it abhorrent. And so they decide that God is too hard-headed, that God is too evil because he's not allowing these wonderful people to have their way of engaging in the sexual union that God created for procreation. And however they choose to do that, he said they think is good. If you are on OnlyFans woman and that girl that just had 1,000 men have sex with, it's like, I can't fathom the indignity this woman has brought upon herself, and she's unfazed, and it doesn't make me angry. It makes me brokenhearted because how little she thinks of herself, how unbeautiful and sacred she must consider herself when she turns her body into a receptacle for the pleasure of men who couldn't care less about her at all. She is a piece of meat by which they can find satisfaction and then walk away without a second thought. It is so demeaning, and it's self-demeaning, which is the worst kind, right? That it breaks my heart. I want her to know who she is, that she's beautiful, that God has designed her to have a man in her life. By the way, what man is ever going to know this woman and say, that's the woman I want to marry, maybe have children with, knowing there are literally thousands of men that had sex with this wife like a piece of meat? I think she's going to have a troublesome time finding a man that's going to feel secure and okay with that kind of soiled beauty. Now, listen, she might become a Christ follower, and we should pray that she does, and God will heal and forgive her, and God could bring somebody into her life that will accept her just the way it is. I want her to have that. I'm not wishing ill on this poor woman. But I don't think she understands how it appears to a man as to what she offers him. It's damaging, and it's a destruction of the sacred. I once mentioned it in my book. I got my book out there, Being a Christian Without Being an Idiot. Having just frivolous sex feels good. All sin feels good, or you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be tempted by it. You wouldn't be sucked into it. So frivolous sex, adulterous sex with somebody other than your wife or husband, fornication, which is sex before the marriage, all of that feels great and wonderful because it does. It's a sexual experience. But what I say is it's like making a sled out of a Rembrandt. It's fun all the way down the hill. It's fun. Wind through your hair, crystal ice, crystals through your nostrils, cold breath in the air, speed and fun, bundled up securely and taking me to the end of the powdery snow. It's fun all the way down, but you're destroying a masterpiece. That's what it means to make a sled out of a Rembrandt. Our bodies are artistic and beautiful and special and holy because God said, and only did God, when he made everything, he made the plants, he made the animals, he made the sky, he made the sun, he made the water. He just made these objects, these objects, he made them with his breath and spoke them into existence, this incredible material world that we all share now. He made with a spoken word from his ideas until he got to humans. And then it became relational. He said, let us make them in our image. Suddenly, something completely new had entered the realm of the material world. And he said, take dominion. All the beauty, all the animals, I want you to love them. I want you to be good to them because I've given them to you to have dominion over. Use them the best you can, the most ethically way you can, the trees, the sky, the earth, the air. Be ethical, be gracious, be grateful, be excited for it. It's yours. Treat it well. Yes, we should, as Christ followers, care about not polluting things if we can keep it and not throwing trash on it. Of course we should care about this land. Christians should, everywhere we go, be trying to heal the land, of course. But we don't worship it. We're grateful for it. We worship God. And that's the difference. That's what puts us into a whole different realm. That's what puts us in a whole different place. It makes us different than the animals. You know, a lot of the atheists, you'll find this. Ricky Gervais is like this. Alex O'Connor is like this. Atheists that are well known. A lot of these guys have a real deep love for animals. It's really, I haven't figured it out yet, and I'm trying to sort of meander through this intellectually and understand what is going on here. But atheists have this tendency to love animals. I don't know what it, nothing wrong with loving an animal, because there's obviously theists can love animals too, so I'm not saying they don't. But atheists have this almost overwhelming passion and compassion for the animal. Not wanting to see an animal suffer, not wanting to see an animal be killed or mutilated or whatever, you know, and of course, who does? But I'm just getting at, it's richer for them. It's almost like they're treating it like a human, right? And I don't treat animals like humans. They're not humans. And they would say, well, that's the thing. We are. Where if you believe in the material world, we all came from the same original organism, and then it became, through mutations in many years, all these different forms came to being. So the animals are just material like us, and no worse or better than us. So we're equals, right? So What I said in my first album, Put a Helmet On, was this. One of the easiest ways to tell if you as a human have a superiority to them intrinsically than the animals is that only humans draw moral assessments about how an animal should be treated or to feel empathy for their pain and suffering. We look at them and say they shouldn't have to be caught in that kind of a trap. They shouldn't have to be poisoned that way. They shouldn't be hunted over here. They don't get to make that call. They don't think about that call. They don't have that introspection. They just sort of live through instinct. And sometimes they might try to help one. If one's being attacked, their instinct is to attack the thing that's attacking them, especially if it's a mom and their cubs. So they'll try to maybe keep it alive, but they don't ponder when everything is good and they're eating food and drinking from the pond. Gee, I wonder if I should, create a barrier and a hedge so that, they don't see us next time. And I wonder why these animals eat us anyways. And I wonder if we could reason with these leopards not to come after us anymore. I wonder if we could maybe create a law that we can all agree to. Listen, you don't eat us at the watering hole, and we won't eat your berries over here, so you can have those. They don't have that as capability. They don't have the ability to reason. They don't have the ability to draw moral conclusions. They don't have any. We do. So the very fact that humans argue how they should treat animals proves we're better than them, because I guarantee you animals in the Serengeti right now ain't having these conversations. If it limps, it's lunch. And as I even said in that album, what are the categories that animals choose when they go hunting? The young, the old, the infirm. They go after the old because they're slow. They can't get around like they used to. I can get them. The young, they're inexperienced, and I will grab them. They're simple. And the infirm because they simply can't defend themselves anymore. So I'm going after what I can get, what's easier. They go after the three categories that humans consider the most egregious. The most egregious if you were to treat them with evil. To children, you hurt children, you're the worst and the most despicable. You hurt the elderly who cannot tend to themselves anymore, you're the worst. You hurt the disabled, the handicapped, who can't see, can't walk, and you abuse and torture them, you're the worst. And we don't want you to abuse and torture anybody, even healthy people. But these vulnerable ones, these glimpses of the innocence, need special attention, special care. Every single thing an atheist does to try to cement some sense of morality in his worldview is stolen from God in his moral landscape. If atheism is true, they have no obligation to any morals. They might do a moral thing, but that's morals that were created by humans to just give us some rules. And they can do those moral things and be moral in that way. Didn't say an atheist can't be moral. That's never the argument, friends. The argument is you cannot find morals in atheism because there is no purpose, design, or reason to exist. We're just organisms that got too big for our britches and became self-aware. So that being said, one might say, how did we go from bean burritos to organisms that are self-aware and became humans? And the answer is, I don't have the slightest idea. I just went off on my little rant and let God do the work, and I hope to somebody out there may be some intrigue, some inspiration. And we'll clip these up, send them out, and maybe some atheists will start attacking me, which they always do. Personal attack, they'll use Sky Daddy, Spaghetti Monster, Priests rape children. They got a lot of attacks. It has nothing to do with proving their inability to access morality from the foundation of atheism. But they don't need to do that if they can just attack. They get joy out of hurting people who hang on to God. They get joy out of harming and insulting people that disagree with them. And that's what atheism is. It's very, very dark and unkind and hedonistic. There's a few, like an Alex O'Connor, I'd love to have him on my show someday, who's smart enough to know the problems with atheism as well as the strengths in its arguments. And I'll give him credit for that. He gets that this isn't easy. And the God ideas, they are worth contemplation. So, if you don't believe in God and think it's because it's been proven wrong, you haven't begun to do your research. Do yourself a favor. Go find God before it's too late, because I promise you, you are going to meet him. So am I. And I'll be doing it with fear and trembling. Wyatt, I think it's about time we go to our guest. I would have given you one last chance to interact, but because the light has continued to droop and you didn't at any time look at that and try to fix it, I don't want to put you on because I think you'll be in the shadows. But it's okay. I just want you to think as though you're in a pile of beans.
Look. You hold this thing up with duct tape, you get what you get.
Amen. You know what I could have used? Better tape or a better duck. Folks, we have a very special guest. He's an old friend. He's been on once before, but this time he's on for much longer. Last time he was doing a tour, I think a book or a movie tour. It might have been a movie. But this time it's us talking like two brothers in Christ, two patriots who love God, love country, don't worship it, but are grateful for it, and trying to see what the lay of the land is, who we are, where we're going, what we're all about. Two men who love being actors, and two men who love the truth. He's an interesting guy. He's a God-fearing man. He's a man of morals and ethics, and so is his wife. I'm glad to call him my friend, and I promise you're going to have a wonderful time listening in on this mystical, magical conversation that I tape for the whole world. So please enjoy God's comic Brad Stein on Brad Stein Has Issues as I interview my friend, athlete, movie star, activist. Please enjoy Kevin Sorbo. How do you do, my friend Kevin?
I'm doing just fine. Let's not bring lawyers into this. My problems they always charge for us, but it's good to be back here, sir. And you're right, we're taking a hard right turn, and it's about time.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem that, we all face, Kevin, and you hear it all the time. Whenever something happens, whoever's in power, whatever administration is running the show, somebody's going to be unhappy. Somebody's not going to like it because they didn't vote for that guy. And they'll say, yeah, but it's going to swing back. Don't worry, the pendulum will swing back. I'm going to be very honest with you, brother. And I'm a man of faith. I know you are too. So I believe in miracles. I believe that and have prayed for years during this last administration that God would give us a third great awakening and show us some mercy. And it appears that he did. But I'm going to be honest, man. I kind of didn't see it coming. I felt like it just seemed as though riding this ship in the United States, based on what has happened culturally, I just felt like maybe it's too late. And for whatever reason, it isn't. But did you ever have any sense that maybe we've gone too far and there's no way back?
Oh, certainly. You look at the first 3 years of what Biden was doing, and the ineptitude of Harris, and the destruction of our country, and the wide open border with 20 million people running across, and the incredible woke stuff, and what Disney and Universal, all these mainstream, these studios were doing and the movies they're putting out, the cancel culture world, the woke insanity, COVID lies, all that stuff. It just added up to just like insanity. But I really started noticing the last year, a lot of my liberal friends, a lot of my atheist and agnostic friends, because I still have some of those around, the ones that haven't banned me, they were seeing the light at the wall. They could see the light at the end of this dark tunnel. They were going, you know what? In fact, when Trump did get reelected, it was interesting that my friends in New York and California, Los Angeles, 2016, you remember, they were all angry and marching and riots. And this time around, they're like, we kind of knew that Harris was useless. And so I think there's a sigh of relief in America right now. And what I love about Trump, he does what he says. There was a great Babylon Bee a couple days ago where they said, I think Trump under impeachment acts for doing what he said he was going to do. I thought it was pretty good what those guys do, because we do have a battle on our hands and still not over. But it's amazing he wasn't assassinated, and it's amazing he's still here. And I think there's a reason for that.
It's true. I was just on Laura Trump's podcast and we discussed and of course, she would talk about an insider. She would know kind of what's really going on there. And, guys like you and I think you're buddies with him, or at least are in that atmosphere. So more so than I. So, to maybe know more about what really is taking place, and, maybe there's things that the average person doesn't know, especially in that world. They have to be somewhat protective of a guy's, personal information and his whereabouts and how he's moving. I mean, this is the big leagues. They kill you for being the president of the United States, and it's not a joke. And obviously, as you just said, it almost happened. I mean, it was fascinating. I could see shooting at a guy and missing, but to get clipped, it's like you couldn't have made that shot if you wanted, like if you were a sniper. Say, I just want you just to tick his ear. It was so weird, Kevin. I don't know if you saw this too, but it was almost like even the secular world, the postmodern world, the regular mainstream non-religious, they looked at that like something has happened. This is too impossible. And we all kind of looked at that moment and said, and then he gets up with the blood going, you're going, that is a movie script. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And it does show about his character because it happened in real time. But it did seem as though even the secular were going, something providential is at stake. It's almost like we knew, I guess he's going to be the president, because this is a whole new ball game. We've never seen this type of personality put into the presidency. So do you know him fairly well personally, or
Yeah, we met 20 years ago. He and I golfed together for 3 days in a celebrity event in Lake Tahoe. And my threesome was myself, Trump, and Jesse Ventura. So it was an interesting 3 days. I'm from Minnesota originally, so Jesse Ventura was governor of Minnesota for a while. Trump at that time was not president, of course, but he was heavy. It was his first year of The Apprentice that was on that at that time. And, I hadn't seen him for 15 years. And it was interesting because during that election, during the second time to go around, when he was going up against Biden, that last year leading up to the election in 2020, he started following me on Twitter. So it wasn't X yet. And he started reposting my tweets. And I got to invited Mar-a-Lago back in 2020. And I'm there with my wife, Sam, and another couple that are members out there. He came walking in. It was after that second ridiculous Russian collusion thing, which we all know is completely fabricated. And we all knew that from the start, of course. There's a lot of people on the left that should be in prison, and journalists included, for the stuff they did there. But of course they won't. I'm sure that's one of the 6,000 pardons that Biden threw out of people.
Yeah.
He walked by me and saw me and goes, Kev, I love your tweets. And then a half hour later, his assistant came up and said, the president wants to golf with you again. And 2 weeks later, I'm on the golf course with the guy. And I've probably been to Mar-a-Lago over the last 5 years, without exaggerating. I've probably been there at least 30 times. And the last time I was there was just 3 weeks ago. And he was sitting right in front of me. We were watching a documentary. And I leaned forward to him and said, God bless you, sir. And I know you got a billion things on your table, but my number one thing besides the board and everything else, I said, get rid of mail-in voting. He said, don't worry about it. We're going to get rid of it.
What documentary were you watching?
It was a documentary on the life of this guy that I think he ended up going to prison and stuff, and the attacks he had for being the lawyer for Trump during all these cases and stuff. So it was interesting. It was fascinating. And, it's not, I don't know, something to go, it's very heavy, very political, and very, I don't think it's one of those, it's not like watching the documentary on the Bee Gees or something, so you'd have to really want to be interested in watching it, but it was good.
Well, so I'm glad that you do have that more personal approach to it, because obviously most Americans or humans won't. And so, The other thing I appreciate about you, Kevin, because you're a man of honor, you're a believer, and you're legit. So I know you have the spirit of the living God in you. I know you're a truth teller and you're courageous and obviously necessary, especially back in this last administration where there was a sense that perhaps free speech is disappearing and that we're
Yeah.
not going to be able to keep saying these things, or at least without paying the price, because we saw people jailed for having an ideological difference. And it's like this is happening in the US. What's left? Where else do you go for free speech if it's lost here? I don't know where else you even go. So we all knew, those who were objectively trying to see things for what they really were, that if we don't win this one, I literally don't see how there's any going back, because you're not, because they would have then implemented such rules and
Yeah.
laws and then put their people into places of power. They're just, it would have been a coup. It had been over. And so when you talk to him, and I'm talking to you now like a Christian, I'm going to talk to you like that this whole interview, because then I know it's real. Where do you think he is in regards to faith? And the one thing I pray for him is that he becomes a true believer, and he let
Mhm.
and Jesus Christ's name comes out of his lips, because I think he at least realizes the providence that saved his life.
Sure.
But I've talked to some people, a guy that was involved with pastors for Trump, so I know he knows him, and different folks that know him. And they've said they think he's an actual Christ follower, or at least got saved. What is your take on that? I'm just curious if there's anybody that has some true knowledge of his spiritual dimension.
Well, from what I can tell, I certainly believe he is. I think the last 10 years, he has progressed further and further and further down that road. And certainly when these assassination attempts, two of them that we know of, how many more out there that they just kept it secret out there? He's well aware of it. And that one that we saw live on television changed him. And he is now to get to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, I'm on the board of a couple of events there, so I'm able to park now at Mar-a-Lago, but everybody else has to park at a hotel like 5 blocks away now. And more than that, it's about 5 miles away, and get to the place via bus after going through dog bomb sniffing dogs and a couple of different, checking points. And so it's changed in terms of the protection of him, because he would just walk out all the time and just greet everybody. And now there's a standoff thing, but because I get it, because he knows he needs to be here to save the country. I mean, honestly, God, he does know that. And he said it himself before, just what you said. He said, if we do not win this election, it is over, because the Democrats have moved so far left. I mean, we were moving far into socialism already, but this last administration jumped straight into communism, and the corruption within our government, and there's corruption on both sides, but the left is so bad and so corrupt, and we're able to see this in real time, but we don't know how bad it is beyond that, because it's horrible. Are the Bidens guilty of a lot of stuff? Heck yeah. Are they corrupt? Yes. The Clintons, are you kidding me? We have so much proof on these people, and yet they get a free pass all the time. When Biden pardons somebody like a Fauci, who's evil beyond evil, the stuff I was posting on Twitter or Facebook 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, I got taken down. I lost 4 million followers because of misinformation. And all of my misinformation conspiracy theories, of course, have come true. And everything I said about mask wearing and 6 feet separation, the craziness of it. Does COVID exist? Sure it does. I got it. I still ate and still ran around and worked out, and didn't hit me that hard. Other people, it hit pretty hard. I get it. Comorbidity was a huge factor in people dying from it, but the government was encouraging it. But hospitals, hey, we'll give you $39,000 if it's a COVID death. Once they put you on a ventilator, forget about it. It was over. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really corrupt what they did. And for Fauci to get pardoned, I'm sorry. They asked Biden, are you going to pardon yourself? He goes, I've done nothing wrong. I should pardon myself. So he's admitting that those guys did wrong and evil doing. So it's I
Well,
think that President Trump realizes that he is a chance not only to save America, but save the world. I saw parades prior to his election and after his election in Eastern Europe, in Japan, Australia. I mean, they realize how America goes, the world goes with it.
so when you have lived your life, and the Trump thing is obviously important for us to discuss because it affects everything that's happening. And as we film this, it's only been a week, so I don't know what's coming and how many more, um, elements of his administration are going to be put into place. But the man hit the ground running. See, this is what I was trying to navigate, Kevin. It's like almost like he knew, or at least prepared as though he was pretty sure he was going to win because
Yeah.
he had all of these pieces in place that he was just ready to unleash the moment he gets the certification. And so for him now, either he was just optimistic and trying to just sort of head it off at the pass so he would be ready to, with guns blazing, or he knew something we didn't know. But it almost felt like it was a plan that he had in place all along. Now, maybe that's just his hubris because he's a multi-billionaire that's learned how to work deals and he just assumes I get what I want. But did you ever feel like it was destiny, like he almost knew that this is the way it's going to be, so I have to get things in order because the other thing that's going to have to happen, which he's put into place, is once they say go, uh, it's got to be shock and awe. It has to be such a pile on that the left doesn't know where to turn and where to stop the bleeding because we are going to go after everything because it's going to take such a lot of time to turn a ship. All these institutions that he has to weed out. All
Yeah.
of the FBI has been corrupted.
Oh, yeah.
The CDC has been corrupted. We have an entire political party that's been corrupted. We have the IRS is corrupted. I mean, the civil service, it's all been corrupted. So
Yeah.
these guys aren't going down like, oh, I guess we lost. Oh well, that's the end of that. This is this is the major leagues. Like I said, you don't think they're in there. Okay, they're plotting right now. How do we
Of course they
destroy
are.
all this? How do we do it? So
Yeah.
but he went in as though he knew exactly what was necessary. Maybe he learned it from the last time, and he was biding his time until they said, okay, you're back, roll. I don't know. Did you feel like there was something almost magical happening that we couldn't put our finger on that was inevitable that he would be back?
Yeah, I think the last 4 years he knew that he was keeping notes of everything going on in America and around the world the last 4 years. He knew what he wanted to do, and he knew that we got to get rid of mail-in voting as much as we can. We still have mail-in voting, but let's curtail the cheating, which they did. If you look at every blue state that still stayed blue, they all had fewer votes in blue. That a lot of those blue people either didn't vote or went independent or voted for Trump because they all knew people are awake to what's going on out there. This guy, look, the minute he was elected, things started changing. Things started changing already, and he was already said this one would do that. He became president back in November when he was elected, even though Trump was going to be in office Biden was going to be in office 3 more months. When the Iranian hostage thing started coming to an ending point, it was because of him. Biden's going to take credit for it in his last week in office. Had nothing to do with it. This was the exact same replay back in 1980 when Reagan beat out Carter. And we had the Iranian hostage situation there for such a long time, like a year and a half or whatever the heck it was. The minute Reagan came in, they knew Reagan was no BS. There was going to be no crap with this guy. Carter was a pushover and a wimp, and so is Biden. So, Putin is not afraid of Harris or afraid of Biden. He has respect for someone like Trump because Trump knows how to wield his power. And every other country, same thing. I love these interviews he's doing. I saw them out in California. Look, those fires went through my neighborhoods again for the second time in 7 years. I mean, I came through in 2018 when I was still living in California. And it's amazing to me that they kept that mayor in office, that she should have resigned immediately. And they keep someone like Newsom in power is just mind-boggling to me. And people need to be reminded he is Nancy Pelosi's nephew. So that, the fruit doesn't fall too far from that tree because they're both incredibly corrupt, incredible losers. And I'm going to show you one little thing here for a nice picture I got in my office all the time. Me and my wife with the Trumpster right there.
Nice.
We get out there. We've been very fortunate to get out to a lot of events. In fact, I've hosted 2 of the last 3 Lincoln Day dinners there, which is a blast. They've asked me to do it again this year, where I get to bring him and DeSantis on stage and other political powers like Scott and stuff. So it's been an honor to be somehow brought into that Mar-a-Lago sort of, private fold in a way and meet the people when they're able to meet.
But what I like about it though, Kevin, is that to me, and I'm just using you as an example of the larger picture about what it means to be an American, because you're a citizen. You're just a
Yeah.
guy. You're not in politics. You're
Nope.
obviously try to be aware of what's going on, and you care about how it affects you and your family and the way you see the world, and certainly your patriotism. But the fact that a regular guy can have that power, especially like with X and so forth, like you said, that was the other miraculous intervention
Mm.
was when that we haven't had a lot of rich guys, it feels like, on the side of the conservative for a long time, and certainly we didn't have the dissemination of information. They control all of the networks and the radio and the newspapers, so it's very difficult to get your message out when it is forbidden in the primary means by which people get their information from. I mean, that's rough. And here comes Kevin, the richest man in the whole wide world, suddenly said, you know what? I'm going to buy X, Twitter at that time, and just let people say what they want. But what would have happened if he hadn't done that? So
Well,
that was another providential thing. And he ain't no Christian. I don't know what this guy, he wants to like AI things and have chips in our brains. And he's got a whole nother world. But something did tell him, I want freedom. Maybe
yeah.
it's just as a capitalist, he wants to have access to the US resources and whatnot. But that was another miraculous intervention, and it shows the power of the voice of the people, because if we had a place to say how we felt and people got to examine it, or doctors could come back on and say, look, I'm a virologist, this wasn't the way to do this and you guys didn't give me that access. But as a citizen, you were given a platform because you're an actor, and so in that regards, all you did was leverage what God had given you to try to make a difference. So, did, where did you start in sort of this idea of maybe I need to be more proactive when it comes to my country? Has this always been part of your character, or did something happen to you to say, I've got to get involved?
Well, I've always been a Christian. I've always been a conservative. Even growing up in Minnesota, my parents were Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale Democrats. The first time I could vote, I did vote for Reagan in 1980. It's always sort of been there for me. Obviously, the social media, the whole thing with Facebook and Twitter and all these other places, people can have a voice. I had a voice, and I would not post hateful things or angry things. I post some sarcastic truth for sure, because I like to have a laugh. I mean, you're a comedian, so I like to make people laugh too when I can. So it got to a point with a manager and agent, they just said they couldn't work with me anymore because it was too I was too well known to be a conservative actor within Hollywood. I think sometimes it's worse to be a Christian in Hollywood, which is really weird. I guess both things together, I'm like kryptonite to Universal now. But I said, you know what, this is the road. 2010 was a difference for me when I did a movie called What If. And What If, in my book, is a far better movie than God's Not Dead. It was written by the same guys who did both movies. And what Dallas Jenkins directed What If. And I saw the reaction people had on that movie. And I said, you know something, God, this is the road you want me on, isn't it? Because I wasn't like lost in LA, and I was doing independent movies and I was kind of chugging along. But that got me excited. And I said, oh, I get it now. We're called to harvest. My talent, whatever it may be, is being an actor and now directing a lot as well. Blessed and lucky enough to get anything done each year. Every time I raise money for a movie, it's a God thing, and I know that. And once I started doing these movies, and people's reaction it wasn't Hercules or my other series Andromeda anymore. 80% of people today through airports or whatever, I love your movies, what you're doing. Please keep doing what you're doing. And so it just reinforced the fact to me that, okay, this is the right road that I'm supposed to be on. Clint Eastwood is my hero. He's in his 90s still making movies. I'm never going to retire until I absolutely have to. I'm going to keep going on because I love what I do. And, I'm not making near the money I made in Hercules or Andromeda for those 12 years in those series. But to me, this is far more satisfying.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. We've kind of started in politics, and that's smart because it's something you did have a direct relationship with, so it gives people a little bit of an insight that maybe
Sure.
they wouldn't have had. But I also want to talk about acting too, for more reasons than just
Uh-huh.
as an interesting topic, because I want to talk to it again from the perspective of a Christ follower. because a lot of people that watch my podcast, listen to the podcast, are performance artists or want to get into acting or whatever. And one of the things that I, f- I find challenging, I guess, and I wanted to get your perspective on that, is the fact that most films are not made for Christians. That there was a Christian that somehow his worldview is being honored here or whatever. You literally had to create our own genre to find dramatic films that had a Christian worldview, even though the Christian worldview is very much the through line, hidden perhaps or disguised in some of the greatest films ever made, from It's a Wonderful Life to newer
Yeah.
films that are very Christian based and have that redemption at the end, and the bad guy loses and the good guy wins, and there is hope at the end of the tunnel, but life is hard and so forth. But of course, that's just kind of gone by the wayside. And now we either have frivolous sort of superheroes movies to make people feel good, but there's not a lot of depth to them, or it's just sexual things and this and that. So if you are a Christian and you just have this sense, I want to be an actor, man, I want to do this thing. And then you go out to Hollywood or New York, wherever you're going, you start taking class. I did all this, and you're doing scenes and or you're getting some breakdowns, and if you're lucky enough to have an agent, you get to go audition for some. But then you start going, this is, I don't even know if if I'd even want to make this movie, so it's such an odd challenge, almost like this industry wasn't made for us. And of course it wasn't, but it's like it just started drifting off to where it's just harder to navigate. Is it a compromise to take certain roles? And are there certain parameters one needs to, I guess, place on yourself? It's going to be your own relationship with God. But we have differences. We have a Denzel Washington, who I believe is a Christian, pretty much committed
Yeah.
believer. And he'll do movies where he plays a guy who's cursing up a storm, blah, blah, blah. Jim Caviezel, committed Catholic, played Jesus. He'll curse, but he won't do a sex scene. That's his own parameters. So, well, let's start personally with you, and then see if we can also help sort of examine how do believers navigate the performing arts, especially in these regards. Did you have any personal sort of boundaries you placed on roles you would take or scenes you would play? And if so, how did you come up with those?
Yeah, I mean, there were roles that I got asked to audition for, before the Hercules, thing, and I would go, yeah, I don't want to play a character like that. I want to play someone that's just something I don't believe in, whatever that may be. Certainly the violence and stuff like that. I didn't want to become. I remember I got invited to do. They offered me a part. This is after Hercules, to do this movie called The Hostel, and it's about people basically buying human beings and to torture them in some way. And I read this script and I went, oh my gosh, this is absolutely horrible. I mean, it was just my character was a businessman, and I bought a 12-year-old black girl, and I blow with a blowtorch. I burn her face off. And I said, why would anybody want to watch this? This is so pathetic and so sickening. And the director said, no, man, people won't expect you to play a role like this. And I said, yeah, and I won't play a role like this. So they won't expect me to. So it was, there are things that I just wouldn't do. I've done secular movies. Have I done some movies I wish I hadn't done? Yeah, I've shot over 90 movies. There's a dozen that, they just didn't turn out for whatever. Maybe I did them as a favor for a friend or something like that, but you kind of look at them and go, wow, this is really a stupid movie. But I pretty much, I would say the last 15 years, for the most part, I've done movies that I'm proud of. And like I said earlier, these are the movies that I think this is the road that God intended me to go on, to have redemption on the table. We have so many movies out there that are so violent, so bloody, so gratuitous sex. And I'm not a prude in any way, but you're kind of going, really? Do we have to see this? You look at the 1940s or 50s, they maybe show the couple fall in bed, then they go up to the window with with the curtains blowing in the wind, and you leave it to your imagination a little bit. Hollywood's waking up a little bit. They're starting to realize there's there's 80 million homes out there that want the kind of movies you've been doing, the kind of movies I've been doing, the kind of the Irwin brothers and the Kendricks do. So there's movies out there that have good messages. To me, people are looking for hope right now. They're looking for redemption. And with God, redemption's always on the table. But to me, it's like, okay, why are we not showing movies like this? And why isn't Hollywood bending down that road yet? Because they're still not doing it. I got a call from Netflix after I did a movie called Let There Be Light that my wife wrote, and it ran in theaters for 4 months, did very well. And I get a call from Netflix saying, hey, we want to open an inspirational division with you. And I was like, hallelujah. I had 4 meetings with them, and their beautiful offices there in Hollywood Boulevard. And ultimately, after those 4 months, nothing happened. And I went, my last meeting, I said, your ideology is so screwed up. It's so childish and immature. Your hatred towards somebody that's conservative or a Christian or both, you guys go crazy about that. Why? And I can tell half the people in the room are agreeing with me, but they're all afraid. I get every movie I've been doing since 2016, 15, I'll get an actor, a director, a makeup artist, somebody comes up to me and say, hey man, thanks for being a voice for us. And one thing, it's flattering. The second thing is like, dude, be a voice for yourself. Don't be afraid. I mean, I look at one of those guys is Neil McDonough. I did a movie with him 2 years ago. Neil is fully out there now. And he thanked me for it. He goes, I'm working more now. I left my manager, I left my agent. I'm doing my own thing. I'm working with my wife, I'm working with my wife, Sam, and Sorbo Studios, and we're doing our own thing. And look at him. He's about to start his second full year in Tulsa King with Stallone. And then he's on the other one with, what's it called, Homestead or something? It's kind of interesting. It deals with sort of the apocalypse. So it's like a zombie fortress kind of thing. But he's such a great guy, and I hope I get to be in this movie he's putting together now. It's a Cain and Abel Western. It's going to be Yellowstone violent, but it's a Cain and Abel story, because people have to remember it was pretty violent what happened with Cain and Abel.
Yeah. Well, not only Cain and Abel, the
Yeah.
whole book, the whole Bible. I mean, if
Oh
that's
yeah.
another thing that, I remember navigating when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and how I would choose roles,
Mhm.
not to have the hubris to think, because I'm going to get so many offers that I'm really going to have to learn how to differentiate. But the truth of the matter is, I did what happened to me. I've told the story before, but I did a student film, and at that time, when you're just kind of getting started, you just take anything you can get because you're trying to get
Sure.
behind a camera and see if you know what you're doing and just get experience, because it's hard to
Yep.
kind of get an acting role, and so you do the best you can. It was a student film, and I just had a curse word I had to use in it. And I was like, I don't care. I mean, I'm not this guy. I'm playing a guy that curses. What the heck? But what happened was, when I was heading to the location, I remember thinking to myself, you've made your living as a Christian comedian who showed you can be edgy and provocative and sophisticated and intelligent and interesting as a comic and not have to curse. And now suddenly you're going to come in and say a curse word, and it's kind of like maybe your fans who've kind of trusted you,
Mhm.
and that you are one of us and that you will hold down the fort and be consistent. Suddenly you're going to go do this thing, and you say curse word, and so it made me really have to stop and go, well, how am I going to know how to choose something then? Am I just never going to do something that has a curse word? Am I never going to do something that has violence? And then I realized I don't believe in this story. The whole
Ah,
story just wasn't a good, it was just dark and stupid student film. So they thought they were being edgy, and it was just, you know,
sure.
everybody thinks they're Stanley Kubrick or something. And it made me realize maybe what is more important is the end product. Do I want to be part of a story that is going to be around forever? Because nowadays with the internet and everything, it's going to be
Sure.
forever. These things are going to be floating around the ethers. Do you believe this story should be told? Do you think it has something to say that matters? And if you can do that, and you happen to be the bad guy, well, I don't know that you could necessarily say that there would be something wrong with making that choice. I mean, somebody's got to play Satan
Yeah.
in the story about Jesus. Does that mean you shouldn't play the worst guy there ever was because you're a Christian? So I just wondered if you had any ideas or thoughts to Christians perhaps that are wrestling with the moral judgments as to how one might go about perhaps using words or acting in behaving in a character trait that would be the antithesis of your belief system. Do you have any formulas perhaps that they can consider, or do you think it's just an individual choice?
I think individual choice is certainly in there. Look, I've done movies where I've sworn before, and I've had people that have emailed me at Sorbo Studios, and they're very upset with me. And I'm going, sometimes it's interesting to me coming from Christians to each other, because I've got atheist friends and agnostic friends, and more than one of them has said to me at one time or another, you Christians think you're so perfect, and you're supposed to be more forgiving, and that you're the least forgiving people. And there's some truth to that, unfortunately. Who is perfect? None of us are perfect. We basically we sin every bloody day, and that's why we get a chance to get down on our knees and ask for forgiveness. I know I've done stuff in my past that I am embarrassed about or haven't forgiven myself. I know God has forgiven me, but I've had a hard time forgiving myself for some of the stupid things that I've done.
You mean in regards to roles you played, or just in your
No,
life?
just life in general. Just
Yeah.
life in general, where I've hurt somebody really bad or whatever it may have been. That I just did something just really so stupid, and I think that if it calls for it, look, there's no swearing and God's not there. And I've had people, or let there be light. And I've had people say, you were such a mean person in that movie. And I go, did you watch the whole movie? The whole idea about is that there's redemption for everyone. For everyone. That's why I did the movie. If that kid, my atheist college professor was that way throughout the whole movie, I probably have said, you know what? Why would I play a guy like this? There's no redeeming quality in this person. So that's a perfect example. Let There Be Light the same way, which is even bigger than Let There Be Light. I play like a Dawkins or a Singer or Hitchens. I play one of the world's greatest atheists. But what happens? He's a life-changing event that challenges his point of view, and he becomes he changes his life. He changes the road that he's on. And so to me, it's like, hey, there are plenty of movies out there, and if they have swearing in it, and it makes sense for that character, but then there's redemption for that character, then why not? Who hasn't sworn? I mean, I golf a lot. There's a lot of swearing on golf courses, but thanks to Fauci, I changed my F word to Fauci because he's got an F, a U, and a C in his name as well. So that's my new F word on the golf course.
There you go. Well, so let's flip the coin here a little bit then.
Sure.
On that, because I like you said, it does sometimes come down to individualism. One of the things I'm so appreciative about God, if you read, the nuances of how God has us move in this New Testament, in the redemptive era, where the curtain was torn and we had access suddenly to the Holy of Holies, and the Spirit lives inside of us, and suddenly God just kind of changed the paradigm as to how believers get to interact as supernatural beings wherever we go. And
Right.
so in the regard that you say, hey man, did the bad guy get his comeuppance? Was it at least indicated that this is the bad guy and you don't want to be the bad guy? I mean, at least, maybe you felt like you got away with it, but you didn't honor him, or you didn't respect him, or you didn't see this is something I want to do. So that's one take. But what about from the faith-based world? And I've done, a handful of those films, and you've done many more than me. But one thing that Christian artists I know have constantly talked about, and I'm sure you've had these conversations with producers and directors of faith-based or a Christian element to it, is sometimes a sense that we are hamstrung somewhat in the way we can tell a story, or things we're allowed to do or say, because somehow it doesn't fit the demo parameters of those who will only watch faith-based films. Like, it's got to say Jesus 5 times. It's got to have the field goal always goes over. The cancer's always cured. The bad guy always gets saved. Well, that's not true.
Not true.
That's not true. The Psalms is filled with angst. And I feel like so much of the faith-based films, sometimes, if they're well written, there sometimes shouldn't be a resolve, Kevin. Sometimes we should be left realizing that the mysteries of God and the difficulties and the hiddenness of him is also part of the human experience. That is also difficult. And I hang on in spite of the fact that I don't know where you are, Lord, or I don't know why you let this happen, or why would you let her die, or why did you let him leave, or why did you, allow that? And I'm never going to know. I'm not, sovereign. I don't know everything. He asked me to believe and hang on in the mist, either way, and that's okay. He gets to make the rules. But I also feel like sometimes Christians sell themselves short in the sophistication of this way we tell stories, in that we don't allow ourselves the full spectrum of the human condition. For example, when they pulled, I don't even think they're around anymore, Lifeway stores had that Sandra Bullock movie. It was about
The Blind Side?
Blindside. Yeah.
Great
So that
movie.
was in Christian bookstore. And then somebody complained because there was like a guy drinking a beer or had a gun. So they like pulled it out. And it's like it was a gang member. How they don't
Yeah.
drink? I don't understand. So, what is your thoughts about maybe some legalistic, myopic view of the arts from the Christian community that we also need to overcome and learn to get more aware of the terrible stories in the Bible that God also felt needed to be told too. So there must be something to some of these rougher stories, or God wouldn't have allowed us to do it. Where's our obligation to the truth?
Well, number one, God never promised us an easy life. Neither did Jesus. We all have obstacles in our life. How you react to those obstacles are really up to you. You can blame God, the world, family, friends, Fox network. I don't care. Look in the mirror. There's what the problem is. And for people that are going to complain about some guy drinking a beer in a movie, it's a little crazy. Life is not perfect, and you're right. Bad endings happen to everybody. I think that people are looking for hope, looking for redemption, looking for faith, but at the same time, you're not going to, you can pray all you want. God isn't always going to say yes. You're not always going to get the numbers to the winning lottery ticket. Okay, it's just not going to happen that way. There's a great joke about a guy playing over and over again that God, please give me the numbers, please give me the numbers, please give me the numbers. Finally, God says, "Well, buy a ticket." It's like it's just like invest in it then. So people need to realize that people fall down all the time. And I think the biggest thing is how you pick yourself back up after you fall down. How do you react to that roadblock in your life? I wrote a book called True Strength at the end of season 5 on Hercules. I had an aneurysm in my shoulder. I was unbeknownst to me that blew up. Unfortunately, four clots went into my brain. I suffered 4 different strokes. My speech came back pretty quickly, but I spent next 4 months learning how to walk and balance again, learning how to 3 years to fully recover. Before you say fully recover, I know what my limitations are. But at the same time, God healed me and put me on this whole complete different road that I'm on right now. So that's what sometimes we need that, sometimes we need God to empty us up, to fill us back up again, to wake up to a different reality instead of complaining about your life all the time. Because most people just whine and whinge and moan. Most things we worry about don't happen. We spend so much time being negative instead of being positive. And then your life is going to play out that way. And you're going to play the victim all the time, then you're going to be the victim all the time. It's up to you to be a better, more positive-minded person, because if you talk to yourself in a positive way, positive things will happen for you. I certainly believe that.
Do you find that there's a difference in how, for example, like you've been a celebrity in the mainstream with Hercules and I think at the Andromeda show and whatnot, and probably others, and then you've been a celebrity in the faith-based world.
Mhm.
Do you see any difference in the way people treat a Christian celebrity as opposed to a mainstream one? And what do you see as the pitfalls of being in the arts where you are famous simply by your presence? So people get around you and say, "Oh my gosh, there he is," and so obviously that could lead to some challenges, I suppose, from an ego or pride standpoint, or maybe
Sure.
some overtures from women. Or I mean, I know how this thing works, but
Yeah.
do you notice anything different about how you felt and people treated you as a celebrity in both the secular and the faith based, or is it pretty much the same nonsense?
No, it's just I think it's better now than it was before. I mean, I think before there was more of an intimidation factor when people meeting me because I was playing Hercules and all this kind of stuff. And there was sort of a not untouchable, but they were just like, wow, that's him in real life. And I'd get invited to all the Hollywood parties, all the important parties, all the Golden Globes and Oscar parties and all these different things in Hollywood, the Playboy Mansion at Hefts. I mean, a lot of things I couldn't do because I was 10 months here down in New Zealand. But it's interesting that with having more of a so-called celebrity thing in the faith-based world, people approach me like I'm a fellow brother. I mean, it's a whole different, more comfortable feel, not only for me, but I think for people approach me as well. And then when they hear me, I do a lot of speaking events. When I speak in events, it's a more forgiving crowd in a way. I've lost a lot of people that were Hercules fans now because I'm a Christian, just because, or conservative. All of a sudden, I'm not going to follow you anymore. And I just find that so hilarious because it's like they're a bunch of like 7th grade mean girls. It's the weirdest, most childish thing that people all of a sudden don't want to like you because you have a different point of view of the world, that we're supposed to all have exact same point of view. And these are the same people that want to control speech. You know, they're the ones. Hollywood wants to control speech. They say they're open for freedom of speech. No, they're not. It's a one-way street with those people. If you're not part of that gang, I don't think they care that the Golden Globes and the Oscars, all these things, ratings have been going down every single year for a decade now. They don't care. They live in their little bubble. They're just like Washington, D.C. They just want to pat themselves in the butt and congratulate themselves. But honestly, I've been to those parties. And as I said to my wife, I would say, can you feel the tension in the air here? Because I think there's a phoniness to a lot of the friendships within the industry. I need this person, I need that person, I need that studio, I need that agent. But the reality is they shake hands, but they got the knife behind the back at the same time. And I saw it played out all the time.
Do you have any friends that you still have relationship with from back in those days that have remained cordial to you and hopefully you're still buddies with, or do you virtually feel like they've all just kind of abandoned you, or can you still think of a few that all still get to hang out or talk every now and again?
Most have left. Most of, and it's such an immature thing. I didn't leave. It's like talking to John Boyd and Dennis Miller. They said, the Democrat Party. I didn't leave the party left me, and I didn't leave Hollywood, but Hollywood left me, and that's fine. But I still have a handful of friends that are great, true friends. And maybe we have different points of view. Yes, no question. Which those people are the real true friends.
Well, as we're getting towards the end, and I appreciate it, I know you were traveling today and whatnot, so probably beat up, but we got about 10 minutes or something left. So I do want to just kind of, use your experience, your life experience. You said earlier about how you're grateful that this gift of acting and this something you love to do, and you're good at it, and you made a mark for yourself. And once it sort of moved into the faith realm, in some respects, I suppose maybe you could have thought it's a downgrade from a career, but then you said, but no, because I literally are changing people's lives, that people have been changed. I mean, I've heard the same thing over the years, Kevin, with even my comedy albums. Now, I've always used the Christian worldview as my social commentary, so it's not completely foreign to think that somebody might be inspired by some of the things I said in between the jokes, because that's my MO, right? That's what I try to do. But when you hear it, because once I make an album, and I still call them albums because I'm old.
I do too.
When I make an album and people see it and they don't realize that how personal it might be. They laugh, they did it with their family. Oh, we grew up watching you. Well, I made that concert, they filmed it, we edited it, we did the color correction, we put in all the proper tweaks, did the artwork, did the photo shoots, put it all together, put it in the marketplace. I'm done. I'm moving on to the next thing. That's been archived as far as I'm concerned. It's dead. Let it live on its own, but I got new things to conquer, new ideas to write. But people will watch these things and it connects to them and they think they know you and they think you're buddies because somehow you attach them. And they will say to me, I got saved watching your thing. It's like, what? Yeah. I can't believe it, because it's like I did that 20-some years ago. Yeah. And for example, in Put a Helmet On, my first kind of the one that made me, I guess, my most recognizable within the Christian community when I first jumped in. I did one, I said, I don't know if I'll ever do another album. I didn't know. So I said, so I got to have one little gospel message in this thing just once. So at least I'll know I did that. And it was just a little, 3 or 5 minute rant about how maybe you need to think about Christianity and take it serious because it's unique. The Bible's unique. The way it was built, how it was written, how long it was written, all these things. Well, that thing has been repurposed, reshared, reused to this day like it's brand new. And people are like, oh, have you seen this? Everybody's doing those videos now where they're just responding to something. Look at this thing. It's like, I did that 25 years ago. And it's like it's fresh, which is what God's life is, right? Whatever he speaks, it's life forever. But, I wonder if you have any specific roles or any specific, you kind of alluded to some that you appreciated, but were there any moments in your life that you are most proud of, maybe a role you played and how you feel it really crystallizes Kevin Sorbo? This is who I really am. And I was able to do that in front of a camera and sort of leave my legacy as to how I see the world to whoever will watch it long when I'm gone, because it's going to be going. When we're dead, buddy, our stuff will still be out there changing people's lives, I guess.
Well, I'm gonna go back to What If. My Pastor Ben character, I thought was such a fun character to play, such an interesting character to play. He's a guy that really still was a believer, but he moved away from it for so long. But I don't, he stopped going to church. He stopped, doing churchy things. But when John Ratzenberger shows up as this curmudgeon angel to say, God has given you a what if in your life. He wants you to be on this road. It's like a reverse It's a Wonderful Life. Because the reality is, I like the road I'm on. I don't want to see that road. And he says, free will, buddy. If you don't like it, you go back to your lifestyle. But right now, you got to see the way your life was. That one was so huge for me because it was the first unapologetically, I think, really well done, really well shot. Because so many Christian movies prior to that, in my mind, they had such a corny feel to them. It was bad acting, bad writing. It looked like it was shot on VHS tape. It just didn't look good. But I think that one really sort of got the ball rolling in a way. When I did God's Not Dead, I remember the Irwin brothers, their father came up to me. He said, yeah, I told my kids, I said, why don't you make a movie like this one right here? Well, they've done quite well for themselves. So I love what they're doing. Those guys are amazing. So that one really, and I got to, what's interesting about Hercules, because I don't know what they do with Hercules today. They probably make Hercules a transgender and this craziness that we got going on. But back then, for a mythological show, and it's proven by the thousands of letters that came in every month to the studio down in New Zealand, is that showed, even in mythology, they could write something that had moral messages in it. I had more letters from kids who were being raised by a mother only, and they said, you were my TV dad. I stopped realizing that I don't need to bully people anymore. I don't need to look for fighting. To have the impact. I saw that impact back in 1993 to 2000, those letters coming in, going, wow, the writers are really, I always wanted the humor in it, which we had a lot of humor in it because it was Sam Raimi producing it, from Evil Dead, which is totally opposite what he's doing in Evil Dead, but still always campy humor. And I realized right then and there, I said, wow, they're doing a great job in writing messages in here for kids that, this has an impact on them. It's not just a show to have some escapism. This is a show giving kids something to look at and saying, okay, I like what he's doing. I want to be like him. I get stuck. Every movie I do, I got someone come up. I became a stunt guy because of movies, Hercules. I started working out because of Hercules. And it shows you the impact, as Walt Disney said back in the 50s, movies and television will influence our youth. And he meant it for both ways. And we see it used so much now to influence in a negative way, just like what right now we're on the internet. The internet is the Wild West out there, baby. There's great things about this, but there's so much evil in this little box in front of us.
As we move in the last few minutes, I want to kind of just broach, a little bit more about your spiritual life because, you just said something that to you is more pragmatic. I played Hercules. You didn't think of yourself as Hercules, the actual Hercules, but people do. The truth is, it's difficult sometimes for people to separate the actor from the role, especially because, if you're playing a tough guy, I'm sure, everybody wanted to get in a bar fight with, Clint Eastwood or, Sylvester Stallone because they think that's who they are.
Yeah.
And maybe you had that same issue. I don't
did.
know. You think you're Hercules? Let me, step outside.
Yeah.
So you did have those kind of things happen
Oh,
too.
I did during the Hercules years. Yeah, I'd be in the gym working out, and guys would walk by, and I can lift more than that. And I got to a point, I'd jump right up and I said, "I bet you can." Realize you're very insecure with your manhood, but I'm more than happy to go down to the front office. They have a mic down there. You come with me, and I'll let everybody know you're stronger and tougher than me. I'm sure that'll make you feel better. I would just disarm them right away and say, "Come on, let's go." I know. Congratulations, good for you. The male ego, right? There's so
right. Well, I think what I was going to explore, though, quickly was, so when this was happening with Hercules, apparently you say you were unaware of the impact. Did you even think while you're making it? I wonder if this is changing people's lives, or did you were just doing your job and you were enjoying it, but you didn't know there was a deeper element that people were gleaning from this thing than you had ever anticipated.
Yeah, I don't think I realized until the second season. The first season, it was just fun. It was just fun make believe. Anthony Quinn played Zeus. I got a whole year working with Anthony Quinn. That was amazing. I know these younger people, if they were watching, who's that? Well, he's a 6-time Oscar nominated and 2-time Oscar winner. So go check him out. Some amazing.
Yeah.
So to me, it was just this fun camaraderie on the set. I'm playing Hercules, a guy I read mythology through when I was in 7th and 8th grade, just curious about it. And so to me, it was just fun. But by the second season, I went, wow, this is really affecting people's lives. Because it was also one of my first autograph shows I'd done, first Comic-Con. And the family's coming up to me and getting a letter from the editor of the TV Guide at that time saying, this is the only TV show we watch every week as a family because we love the messages in there. So I thought, that's pretty cool.
So this is going to make sense as we sort of end with a couple little questions. And this one, is a little bit more vulnerable, but I think it's important because one of the things that you have indicated, from just now, Hercules, as well as the other art. I mean, you're a strong guy, you're a good looking guy. So obviously you played that kind of leading man role. But as we just indicated, people have a tendency to not be able to separate the character someone plays from the life that they actually live, because you're a real
Right.
person and you have your flaws, your difficulties, your challenges. You even said earlier, there's things I'm ashamed of. I wish I could make go away, but I can't. This is what I did in my life. But I wanted to see if you would be able to share maybe one, and you'll see why, because people see you as strong. They saw your courage in the Twitters. They saw your courage in standing up against the woke. They saw what happened to your career, but you stood firm. I mean, you're a courageous man of virtue. You lived it out. You didn't talk about it. You did it when it counted, and it cost you. But maybe you could just spend a second saying, talk to me just about a dark time. Talk to me about maybe one of your lowest times, only because I want people to understand that even guys that they perceive as having accomplished this Christian faith without a hitch, and that, if I could do it like him, but he wouldn't understand. Is there any kind of moment you can give and share, to be vulnerable and say, here's where I really was at my bottom and I didn't know how to get out, because I think it could be perhaps healing and helpful to those who might be there right now.
Well, I think I'm told you right there. It's this book right here, True Strength, My Journey from Hercules, a Mere Mortal, and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. And this is what happened to me. I suffered the strokes. My career was cruising. I had just done my first big budget movie for Universal called Kull the Conqueror. Kull is the father of Conan the Barbarian. Arnold, of course, Schwarzenegger played Conan. And then I was about to do another big budget movie for Universal during my hiatus from Hercules. Well, all of a sudden I went from here to down here, where I couldn't even barely get out of the bed and crawl my way to the bathroom. I told you it took me 4 months. Because luckily, because I was in my 30s, I was still strong. So luckily at that age group, I was able to fight it, but it still took me 4 months to learn how to even get up and balance again. And it just got to a point where I'd walk 100 yards. The next day, walk 200 yards. And we would just keep pushing it with my wife as I'm by my side, just to sort of get my, and I wrestled with God. I got angry. I went through what everybody goes through, man. I said, why are you doing this to me? They were actually gearing me up to take over Arnold Schwarzenegger as the next big superstar, action hero. There was nobody during that time other than that, because Arnold was getting older, and then said, okay. And this happened to me. And I'll tell you, I was down. And I prayed to God. At the same time, I yelled at him for making this happen to me. And of course, he didn't have anything to do with it. But, we always look for outs when the reality is it happened. As my wife would say, who's a tough New Yorker, she said, it happened. What are you going to do about it? And I grew up in a very competitive family, very strong-willed mom and dad who say you work hard, you don't expect handouts. So I clawed and clawed and clawed. I wrote the book years later. I didn't want to write the book. My wife made me write the book. I said, I don't want to show people how weak I was. I don't want to show people that. I went from a 14-hour day on the set to 1 hour a day when I first went back 4 months later. So that's all I could do. They made a little crutch for me to lay, like a little butt crutch, so I could stand there and try to say a few lines, have a lot of cutbacks to previous episodes just to keep the show going. And I was grateful for that. I was grateful that Universal kept it going. They didn't do it to help me. That the show was making a lot of money. We were the #1 show in the world, 176 countries. They were making coin. But for me, it gave me hope. It gave me light at the end of that really long, dark tunnel that I never thought I'd ever be in. So it motivated me to push myself to get better and better. But it took a few years, really. I didn't stop praying, But boy, it took a long time for me to sit there and go, okay, God, I know you had nothing to do with this. In fact, you held your hand out to me to save my life, and I didn't take your hand like an idiot. That was the darkest point. And people reading this book when it came out, I got people from 15 years old that have suffered strokes or got cancers to guys in the 80s saying, your book made me stop feeling sorry for myself. So that to me was a God thing right there. And that's the reason my wife bugged me to write that book, because I didn't want to relive that past, but she was completely right. Because it took me 12 years to sit down and start rewriting this book. My strokes happened the exact same day Princess Di died in that car crash in that Paris tunnel back in 1997.
And the lesson that God taught you, did it crystallize? I mean, in other words, you talked about overcoming it and hanging on there, but
Yeah.
did you ever feel that you understood what that was all about? Why was I given that? Did that ever make
Yeah.
sense to you?
Sure. Made total sense to me. I realized, you know what? If I thought I was really Hercules and I was living in my own bubble, well, a big lightning bolt came down and shattered that bubble. And I don't think I was getting cocky with it, because I was living in New Zealand. And with the New Zealand crew we had, every day on the set was just fun. I mean, I was very blessed. But then those last 2 years for me were tough. We slowly worked up to about 7-8 hour day work days, but it took a while to build up to that time. And so everybody on the set, we're still having fun, but they could see where I was with the dizzy spills I had, and the vertigo, and the things I had, the eye troubles I had. And they really had the kids' gloves out there. And it sucked, because I loved doing my own stunts. In the last couple of years, it was a little tough to do it, because my ego said I can do my stunts because I'm an old jock. It's just fun to do. But yeah, I realized then, I said, okay, God, we got this. Let's kick this thing's butt. Let's be positive. My wife gave me a mantra. She said, every day, look in the mirror. I'm getting better. I'm getting stronger. And say it over and over again, out loud, until you believe it for that day. And that was huge for me.
That's wonderful that, of course, and to have your wife there too, to give you that
Yeah.
support and that strength. I mean,
Yep.
where would we be without him sometimes? Well, folks, I'm going to leave you with one last question. This is what I leave to my subscribers. It's only those who subscribe to the Mighty 10,000 that you get to see these special answers. But it's just kind of a fun one, I hope, because you mentioned Anthony Quinn and that you got to hang out with him. So maybe, is there any, story or something that happened with this famous actor that you found fun or interesting, or something that you'd love to tell people that you got to experience? Because that is part of the fun of acting, and is to be suddenly on stage or on camera. It's happened to me a few times with an actor or actress that you're going, I can't believe I'm here, because I've watched these people my whole life, and now I'm doing a scene, and I'm doing a scene to him, and he's doing it to me. I can't believe it's surreal. It's like, I can't believe this is happening, and I'm the one doing it. I happen to be with Brian Dennehy and different folks like that. But can you relate maybe a fun story that would be something that maybe we wouldn't have known about Anthony Quinn that people would find interesting? Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstein.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the militia of the mind, it is the warrior level, or it is the special forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the Mighty 10,000. All right, buddy. Well, folks, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate your life, your heart, your courage, everything you've done as a believer and for America. You're my friend, and you're a talented man. So thank you so much, folks. Remember, when they tell you that you're being politically incorrect, tell them thank you for the compliment. God's comic Brad Stein, doing what I do, just putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.